Most of these were done in June 2016. Couple of not survived that long. They weren't quite outside. They were in a bag, but the bag was outside. So yeah, we'll see if anything's worth winning at the end of it. I've got a mixture of woods in here: some pear, some oak, some yew. Some of it looks like it's not actually the same pieces of wood that have ended up in as the top and the bottom pieces. But anyway, I guess we'll see how it goes. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat, and I will try to keep my eye on them and answer them. If it's been there a while and you're feeling neglected, do feel free to unmute yourself and ask. I decided beforehand that I was going to do this piece of cherry. So this has been taped together since June 2016, and well, it's got a little bit grubby, and about 3 minutes before I was due to start, I made this discovery of how out of round this top has gone. So that's 2 3/4 inches that way and 3 inches that way. So whether this one will survive the unroughing out stage, we'll see. But I've got some spares. But that's the piece I was going to work on today. So I'll put it in the chuck in a moment. Just a little bit, a quick whiz through the tools I'm going to be using. Most of it will be with a 1/2 inch spindle gouge. This is the Robert Sorby one, with just a pretty standard grind on it. If I need to cut with a little less force, although you should never force your tools, I've got a slightly smaller spindle gouge here, and yes, I'm not hiding my shame. You can see there I did overheat the tip a little bit at the last time I was grinding it. I'll use a parting tool for sizing, and probably I'll use this Lesthorn multi-purpose 10mm tool. Some people call it a round skew. A little bit more versatile than a skew in terms of box making, which we'll get to when we're looking at cleaning up the inside of the box. I've also got a small negative rake, what do you call it, scraper here. I think it's 20 degrees on the top, 60 degrees on the bottom, just a couple of pro edge settings. And again, I might use that if I need a little bit more heft in the tool for cleaning up the inside surfaces. So I'll use this for possibly for hollowing, but maybe actually more for cleaning up the sides. Today I'll probably be going for a flat bottom in the bowl. If I were to go for a curved bottom, then I'd probably want to incorporate the use of one of these scrapers, a curved scraper, but I think that's a little bit too big for what I've got in mind today. And if I don't forget, I'll show the difference between those round barred tools and a more traditional scraper, square-sided scraper, which is from Ashley Isles. This one, the steel, and it is beautiful. I love it very much. Right, so let's get this into the chuck and get the tape off it first. So rough turning, why did I bother with rough turning? Well, the reason I bothered with the rough turning is because the wood that this was made from was fresh wood. It was very wet when I got it, and if I turned a box with it, it would have warped and gone out of round, and the lid may have got stuck, never to come off again. So I mean, all the rough turning was if I just quickly talk you through the steps. Mount your piece of wood between centres, turn a tenon on each end, part it off, and then grip that tenon in a chuck, and then turn a little bit of the inside out. That way it gives less wood to dry off, and just leave it in a bag and forget about it. If you want to, you could seal the ends, but as long as you haven't got the pith in there, most woods you'll be pretty unlucky, if you get a lot of trouble with splitting, unless it's a wood particularly known for splitting, like holly, for example. So the tenon, as you can see, is a little oversized. I probably used Axminster sea jaws when I was making this. all I'm going to do is clean up this inside of the lid. That's the first thing that I'm going to do, and then I'll get the box bottom half put in, and then I will be able to use that as a jam chuck to jam the lid on later on. So spins nice and freely. I've got my spindle gouge here. Let's fire up, and the first thing to do is to clean up this inner rim here, so this flat part here. So I'm just going to ease my tool across, keeping the bevel of the tool in contact. I don't want to take more off than I really need to, and the top is probably going to have some decoration on it, so I'm going to keep the inside quite thick. Okay, I need to turn the speed up a little, and I think I can bring you in a little bit closer. I think even closer than that possibly, so you can see we've got a little bit of voids in the wood there for me to tidy up. Just got to hide that, come back onto here. Okay. Now what I'm also doing is I'm not going in parallel, I'm slightly undercutting so that the outside of this will sit flush on the outside of the box. Let's see if that's cleaned it up better. Maybe 10 years outside in a box isn't great for it. Maybe it won't be worth winning. We should have to see. Let's try a slightly different approach. I'm just going to put the extractor on. Actually, I'll pull some of this. It's very fine dust it's making. Okay, that was a better result. So, going to come in now with the multi-purpose tool. And the advantage of this, if I put it over on this side, you can see because it's got a round bar, it allows the curvature of the wall inside isn't going to start pushing the tool back inside, which is what happens if you use a square-sided scraper. Unless you bring your tool up quite high so that that top corner is hitting the wood and there's gap underneath it. If you're lower down, then it's going to hit the side wall and just get pushed inside all the time. So this is a really nice box making tool, this multi-purpose tool. So in we go. Don't want to take off too much at once. And also what I want to do, if I come on to the overhead shot, is I want to keep this bar parallel. I don't want to go in at an angle like that, tapering so it's narrower at the top, or this way so it's narrower at the bottom. I want a nice cylindrical, even, parallel wall. And mostly you can judge that by eye, but if you don't want to rely upon your eye, then you need a pair of these calipers. That will do it for you. We just put them in so they're just touching the side, and then they should maintain that distance all the way through. I think you'll probably get a slightly better view almost with this view if I bring that in. Oh, just go up a little bit. So the calipers are in here and it's the same distance. Possibly it opens up a tiny bit at the top, just a tiny bit, maybe about 1 millimetre or so. So let's just get that completed. and then I'll move along the bottom. Right, now I don't want to take a lot off that bottom. As I said, I want to keep the top reasonably thick. It's getting there, but we can see we've still got some scorch marks here from some overzealous rough hollowing, I guess. So I just need to clean those off a little more. Could always put some texture on the inside if you wanted people to have a little bit of a surprise moment when they open your box up. A little nub in the center, just clean that off. Okay, that's good enough. Let's just get the dust out of there. Yep, so I've got quite a thick top still, but I've got about, in the chuck, I've got probably 8mm or so, and I want a substantial top to do some decorative effects on later on. So that's enough of that done. Tidying up, so a bit of sanding. I think I could probably start on about 240 or 180 grit. Let's try the 240 and see how that goes. Got the little Simon Hope sanding pads. These are the 36mm ones. Just going to give it a quick sand on the inside. Bring the speed down. I don't want to heat check my cherry. Checking the chat to see if we've got any questions. No. Okay. So that was the first go. That was 240. That's cleaned up the bottom nicely. Just got to do some work on those sides. Quite hard doing that with the tool going in like this. So what I have for sanding on the inside of boxes is this stick. Just a piece of thick dowel with a tastefully turned handle on the end. Look at that. No design skills spared. And I'll just put that on so I can just catch the edge there. I don't want to sand a huge amount off though. And I also want to make sure that I'm keeping it parallel. Next brick. Just a little softening of that edge there. And then just to get a little bit of finish in there, it's a kind of a mixture of sanding and finish, a little bit of cut and polish. Don't need a huge amount of this, just wipe a little bit on, and a bit on the outside. Let it sink in. It'll probably do the wood a bit of good as well, a bit of conditioning after all of its ordeal out in the weather for a decade. Right, let's get that buffed. Get right into that corner. That helps if you have a little bit of a fingernail to do that. And bring the speed up. So you want to keep going till your cloth is clean. Then you know you've removed all of that abrasive compound, and it has some wax in it, so it's got a wax finish. Okay, so there we go. That looks a whole lot nicer. So the next thing for me to do is to take that out of the chuck and get the body mounted. So the body's got quite a bit of tape that seems a bit reluctant to come off. Have to see how that fares a little later on. So grip that on the spigot. And going to get it trued up on the outside first. I want to make sure I've got enough room, or enough wood left for that, of course, to fit on. It's a circle on the inside, but not yet a circle on the outside. You can see these walls here are a little bit thicker, but not by a huge amount. So I'm moderately confident it's going to work. So let's get this just trued up, and probably I think I'll go to my spindle roughing gouge for that. Bring you back on the overhead view. So you can hear it, you can see it's not an even cut yet. I find turning cherry very therapeutic. I love the smell you get, particularly when it's a bit fresher than this. And sometimes I'll just keep turning it just for the smell of the fresh shavings. Still, maybe it might be just there. Oh, well, that looks a lot nicer now, doesn't it, than it did a few moments ago. That's probably enough for now, so let's get on to the front. And you can see there was almost the beginnings here of a tenon for the lid to fit onto. But I've got so much detritus built up there, I'm going to just clean that face off. So there we go. Again, coming in from the side, letting the bevel pick up the cut, and just move across. There we go, one more. Now, you probably saw this little line here appear, which is my long bevel just bruising the surface. I'll clean that up in a moment. Now, I've got to transfer this measure onto there so that I don't make that too small. I'm not going for a super tight lid fitting by the end of this. They all say that, don't they? But I like a box that you don't have to pick up and wrestle the lid off. So where have I got my other compasses? Up here. So I can sort of give myself a rough figure by opening these, setting them to that diameter. You can do this of course with calipers as well. And okay, so that's a little on the tight side, so that gives me a rough sort of area. I'm not going to put any marks, and I can see I've got quite a bit of space there. So I'm going to make it just a little oversized to begin with. I hope. And then we'll look at the fitting it after that. So there we go, always erring on the side of caution. I quite like coming in this way because it means I don't have to keep moving my tool rest to see how much more I've got to go. Quite a little bit more to go still. I can bring that in a bit closer. There we go. And maybe from the overhead you can see I'm putting a little bit of a taper on there. And we've got about another couple of millimeters to go. A little more. So you can see that movement there. So to cut parallel and then bring the top in, just roll the handle over slightly to the right. We should be almost on the point of that engaging. I can see it's very close. Remember, I put a little mark on the front as well to help me eyeball this, and I'm very close to it. I'm just going to do a tiny bit more. And oh, that's just about catching right on that front edge. So there we go. You do all this creeping up and then it doesn't fit. Right, there we go. We're in the very, very close to it now. So I was rolling this tool from side to side to make it a bit of a bulge at the in the middle of this, and that can give you a nice suction fit sometimes. But you can see it's nearly there. A little bit of noise, not a huge amount, but it's getting there. It's getting there. Thank goodness. So this is where it gets a bit more critical, of course. You don't want to lift your tool up too high. Get it on the wood first, so it's just rubbing. Pull back, get a little very fine cut. And yeah, I'm very happy with that. That's pretty secure, and you can see how out of round everything is, and it comes off. That's good. Right, so that fits on. Now, before I shape the outside, I'm going to clean up the inside and just hollow out a little more. Just tidy the bench of a few things. And in terms of the depth, at the moment, to the bottom of the box from this rim here is about 52 millimeters. It's currently 34 5mm deep, so I could go maybe another 5mm, 40, keeping it a little bit of weight in the bottom so it's a bit more balanced. So for a box this size I would usually hollow out with a spindle roughing gouge. So I'm just going to go in, the tool rest is allowing me to cut on centre if I position it correctly. This sort of slightly sideways view will show that perhaps. I'm going to go in, hit the bottom, pull and follow round. If you want to, you can of course drill a hole to the bottom and use that to register your tool. And the thing to watch for is that you don't turn this handle too far and end up cutting a bulge. I want a straight-sided box. That's pretty close to the depth I'd want to go. Use your bowl, get your spindle gouge just as a rough measure. That's going to leave a nice bit at the bottom. So just going to clean up along the bottom into that corner, running the tool along, and then up the side. Right, so in terms of now cleaning that surface up, we can do that. We can try with this 10mm tool. If it's not quite got enough heft to it, I'll swap to a different tool. Slightly narrower bar, so bring the tool rest up, and in we go. So nice and slow feed. And I'm just feeling the shape of the bottom. It's slightly rounded. And so on the inside here, what I'm doing is I'm running down the side, getting to the bottom, and then just moving slowly across, going forward, because there's a little bit of a curve on the inside there. And when I started doing these, I was always very unhappy with the side wall being uneven and rather ridged, but that's getting there. And at the bottom it's about a 2mm difference between the depth at the centre and the depth at the side. So I want to just work on that, running the tool across, and you have to work on feeling here, really, letting the tool tell you what's going on. And one of the things about cutting it with a tool like this is that as well as it cutting across the face, it will cut at the sides. So that's left a pretty reasonable surface. We get that cleaned up. Bit of a closer inspection reveals a slight bump still. You can probably see it just here. So just need to clean that up. Maybe I'll give the negative rake scraper an outing. So bigger tool, bigger bar, tool rest down a little, and that is going to cut almost on centre. There we go. So run it down into that corner, run across, As I say, you have to do it by feel. Very hard to see in there. So you get to see a close-up of my thumbnail instead. Right. That is much better. Let's get a little bit of light in there for you. Come on, little light. Okay, so you can see we've got a nice, flat, even bottom. That little centre pip has gone. Oh, you can see through the hole if I put it in the right place. Yeah. So, happy with that. Sanding time. So I'll start off sanding the sides. These are a little bit deeper, so I'll use my sanding stick. And we'll run through the grits. I think we start on 180 and then go to 240. So there we go, freshly positioned. And you don't have to have your lathe running to do this. If you prefer, you can do the sanding, and it sometimes helps to do at least some of the sanding by hand so that you're moving with the grain. And just running up and down, removing any tool marks, smoothing the surface. But it is quicker with a bit of power. So here we go. Let me get my tool rest out of the way. Right, first grit done. So, once I've done it with the power, then to remove any radial lines up and down with the grain. And then swap grits. So, 240 is next. Bit of power first. There we go. Power off. Rub by hand. Get the dust out. See a little bit of torn grain, so work on that by hand. The tool moving. That seems to have done it. And then a bit of 320. And for the bottom I'm going to use power drill, but what you want to watch out for, I'll come onto the overhead here, is when you're inside you don't want to move too far again into that corner, because you can end up sanding a little wider ring there. So a few more moments of sanding. So now a bit of finish again, exactly the same as before. A bit of cut and polish, a bit of kitchen roll. Now there is a caution against putting your fingers into a spinning object, and there's probably a safe depth you can go to and not have the danger of your fingers getting caught in there. For some of you that will be deeper than for others of you, I guess, based on your finger size and your appreciation of the level of risk. So if you want to make something up to hold this so that you're not doing it by hand, you could make similar arrangements. Hold it in place with a stick and have the stick just there holding it by friction. Or you can say, well, I think that kind of depth is down to my it's past the first knuckle, and it's a small space. You only need to sort of move a little bit to have it thrown back at you. It's probably best to avoid that danger, because you can hold this on with a bit of tape if you prefer, but even just holding it in there with a stick, bring up the speed, is going to buff the wood. And again, you want to keep going until your cloth is clean. So moving it around, getting all of the surface covered. On the outside, I'm quite happy to have my finger on that edge and even put it in. Right, so there we go. That's looking pretty nice on the inside. I do love the warmth you get from a piece of cherry. And that's the inside done. The lid still fits nice and snugly. I will deal with this, come into focus, a little later on. Right. So I'm going to deal with shaping. I'm not going to worry too much about matching up the grain with this, but I do need to get it trued up. And even though it's a pretty snug fit, I am going to bring up the tailstock just to provide a little bit of extra support. So that means just moving my tools aside for a moment. Up we come with the tailstock. And I'll just put a little ring center in here. That won't go in too deep. Just check if we've had anything in the chat. Okay, so the little vacuum cleaner I'm using, question about that. Yeah, I shall show you that. This is something I bought from online retailer, Amazon. It's a small air compressor inflator for things like beach balls, that kind of thing. It's USB powered, rechargeable, 3 different settings. Quite good at blowing lots of dust into the air, but it's great for when I'm masked up with a powered respirator on and I can't blow the dust. So it comes with different ends. You don't have to have an end. It's a bit of a you've got different nozzles that can go on, but this one here with the brush is great for blowing stuff out of texture, and I find that's the one that I mostly use. Okay. Where do we get to? Tailstock. Yes, so I'm bringing the tailstock up to provide just a little bit of support in case that lid decides it wants to come off, which I doubt very much it would, but why not err on the side of caution? There we go. Back to the roughing gouge. So lightly running along. We've got it round. And as you can see there, just because this is called a spindle roughing gouge, you don't have to just limit it to rough work. That's left quite a nice surface that's very sandable, and I could start that probably even at 240 grit. Okay, this bit, we need to clean that off. And I could take the tailstock out of the way, but I can get a lot of that removed with the tailstock still on. Let's see if this gives you a little bit of a better view. Can you come in a bit closer? Yeah, let me just adjust that a couple of clicks. One up. I guess go down once more. To use my controller. The thing about using this remote control is it controls all of the same cameras in here, and it means they'll all be slightly moved from their original positions. Okay, cleaning that face off. Get the tools back up, and back with the spindle gouge. Now it's going to be cutting a little bit below centre, but that's okay. We're only going to take a little bit off at a time. I'll just run across it in steps. Getting to, when I get to this point, rather than keeping it open, just close the flute off, just so this wing on the right doesn't get caught or hit by the wood that's turning down towards it. Nearly done all I can with the tailstock still here. So I'm just going to put a little bit of relief in there, because that's where I'm going to put some decoration. Okay, and the rest of that I'm going to have to do without tool rest support, which is why it's quite pleasing that I managed to get a nice firm tenon. Okay, let's just get the tailstock out of the way and the ring centre removed. Put it up in the rack. So that's very solid. Quite confident with that, but if you're less confident, you can use a smaller tool for this unsupported cleaning up cut. I want a completely flat top. You could of course leave a little knob in the centre. And just give that a little look. I probably want to define this edge a little more strongly than it is currently, and again I can do that with a scraper. Let's give you that view. Just got to come back slightly, want to cut on centre. So what I'm looking at when I'm cutting across, as the tool is moving to here, and this edge is all covered with shaving. It's very difficult to see where I'm cutting, so I look on the opposite side for that cleanliness of cut. And that is almost level, just slightly higher on this outside edge, I think. Now, I did hum and ha, of course, about whether I was going to colour it or do any embellishing, but I'm pretty sure you'd all expect me to do some, so I'm going to, in that lid. Always a good idea to know how much thickness you've got there. Various different calipers for measuring the thickness of things. These are the ones that I like. I'll just get these on a wider shot for you. So these are Simon Hope calipers, and if I put my lid between them, squeeze it shut, then I'll give you a closer view. I can see there that I've got 8.5 millimeters thickness, which is perfect because some of the texturing I want to do in there might go a little bit deep. Right, we just slot it back on into place, and the first texturing that I want to do is with another new tool called Blimey. What are the chances I'm going to drop this in my shavings? This is another battery powered Proxon tool. This is a little drill grinder, comes with a range of different collets, and I've got in it a cut burr at the moment. I'm going to put some cut burrs in there, some other decorative features, and I'm going to put some colour on it as well. And all this within the next 12 minutes. Does my optimism know any bounds? I've also, let's see if I can show you this, bringing over my extractor, because I'm going to be creating fumes and smoke. So I get that turned on. It's got a new filter in it, so it should work nicely today. And to give myself more of support while I'm working, I'm just going to put my little platform table in here. So here it is, a little platform on a tool post. It's more comfortable doing this sort of work sitting down, but I'm going to just use this just to brace my hands on, and let's try and go fancy and give you this view as well. Hopefully that will square it up a little. So the reason for getting this tool is not tool vanity. It's so I can have one I can travel abroad with if there isn't a 240 volt supply. Right, let's just get a few bits burnt in. So careful not to block up these cooling vents. Straight onto the surface, and if you don't go all the way with the tool, you can then leave a little burnt ring. But I've got the deck to do some proper dots. And it's also quite a quick way of covering a large surface with embellishment. And you can see hopefully a lot of the smoke is being taken up. Okay, I think that will do. Now, one of the things, well, several things that I've been impressed with this tool is the battery. It's pretty powerful. This is now the third project I've worked on with it, so it's an impressive bit of kit. Right, let's get this burr out. It will be very hot, so don't try and pick it out with your fingers. Just lock it. It comes with this rather strange little wrench. It does the job. And I can swap this for a slightly smaller one. Actually, it's considerably smaller. There we go. Let's get that in. Put those to the side and tighten up. And back we go. But let's swap that round so you get a bigger view of this, and we put that as a little side picture. So on with the power. Quite a large area to fill, but I do want to have all of it textured. So there is a chance I'll rush and mess something up. Now eventually these little cup burrs get filled up with quite a lot of carbon, and the thing to do, certainly with the ones a little larger than this, the easiest way I've found to clean them off is with a little blowtorch. This is fun viewing, I'm sure. Not much more to go with this tool. It really does help having this platform for it to rest on. Gives a lot more control because it's quite a wide tool. I think without this it would be a little trickier to get the sort of accuracy that you might want. So a few places where I've got space for a couple more. Just want to get a relatively even density. So give it a few little turns. Often you'll see things that you might have missed otherwise. think there's room for one there. Maybe one in there. Okay, that will do. So that's it for this tool. Next, some pyrography. So just get the red scorpion plugged in. And a number of different tips to use and different pens. I'm going to start off with this little ball tip. Come onto the overhead so you can see that a little more clearly. So a little ball tip. It's a razor tip pen, but I've made up a lead so I can run it from the red scorpion machine. Move those aside and power on. And as you know from previous demos, I like to keep a little pad available, a bit of leather on it so that I can just clean off any carbon deposits. Right, let's get back onto the tailstock view, and my glasses aren't quite strong enough for this, but anyway, I'll do my best. So I'm just going to find gaps and burn a dimple. And don't have to necessarily work as quickly as I am, of course. You can take your time over this. I was really hoping I'd get it done in the time, but I think it's going to be a little optimistic. And again, this isn't the best ergonomic attitude to be standing at. If I show you how I'm doing this, that camera should kick in a moment. There we go. So I'm sort of standing and having to lean across the wood, which is not very comfortable for more than a few moments. So I would normally take this off, have it in my little smoke booth over the other side of the workshop, and do this without having to twist and lean over. Posture is so important, and stance so important with how you're working at the lathe. So quite a big area here I can fill quite quickly, and it just sort of shows, I hope, how if you use tips thoughtfully, you can cover quite a large area with pyrography quite quickly. Not as quickly as airbrushing something. And certainly this would be something you'd be hard pressed to want to see much more of in a demo, I guess. I did have to laugh. The last demo I did, where I talked about one of my cameras not behaving itself because we'd had so much rain, the AI element of Zoom actually took that seriously and made a serious comment about it. I didn't share it with everyone because I thought it was a little bit daft, but it did make me chuckle that I could blame one of my cameras for not focusing because we had too much rain. I wonder if AI will ever get sarcasm. There's probably someone here who says, yes, it does already. Right, do I sharpen my cup burrs? Another question. Yes, I do sharpen them. So when they arrive, they are actually designed for jewellery, metal jewellery making. And the outside wall is a little bit too thick for working with wood. And if you thin that down, it cuts, believe it or not, with less smoke. And it also means that the gap around where that central dome is smaller, which looks a bit neater on wood, I think. And that was a tip I got from the first person I bought some of these burrs from, Michael Keyes in Pennsylvania, I believe. And he says, put it into your rotary tool and spin it against the side of a CBN wheel. I wouldn't do it on a stone wheel. I think they're too coarse, and you shouldn't really ever, even something as light as that, I guess, is you shouldn't really grind on the side of a stone wheel. But that is a great tip. You just do it till you just see the teeth start to appear through the wall. Right, so there we go. That's probably about as much as I can get on there with that tool. And as you can see, we've got most of it covered. I'm going to swap pens, put this somewhere to cool down sensibly. So now it's about getting some texture and filling in. And so I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a better chance of doing that where I can stand up straight here and do the work this way. So I'm just putting in, filling in all of the gaps right up to that edge. Now, it's very easy when you're covering an area to get into a pattern without really knowing it. So when you've got a large area like this to cover, I tend to jump around all over the place. It keeps it a little bit more random isn't the word, but it avoids getting into a pattern that's sort of noticeable as a distinct zone. So really, I mean, most of the box turning stuff is done. We've turned the inside of the lid, we've turned the inside of the box, we've got the lid fitted to the box, and we've got the insides sanded and waxed, a nice finish on them. So now it's just a case of the decorative stuff on the lid, and then of course we would need to turn the bottom of the box. So I know I could keep going with this, but I can't overrun too much. Some of you might be going off to watch Cindy Drozda's demo on making an egg box with an egg inside it for Easter, which great little project. So the other thing to do is how do I turn that bit off the bottom of the box? And one of the ways to do that, of course, is making a jam chuck. But I've got some nylon jaws that fit on my Nova chuck, which I have got to show you in a moment. But I think you can see you're getting the idea. I'm not going to do any more. It would just take too much time. But the intention would be to finish that off, of course, and then I'll spray the lid black, and then I'll do some dry brush of some blue-green iridescent paint over the top, and that'll give it a little bit more interest. And then this top edge I'll just clean up because I think it'll look much nicer with a neat framed bit of wood as the lid. And that heat has dried it out, so it is a nice loose fit now. There was one thing I probably should have done, which is this join line. Should have done it while it was a tighter fit. It's not really quite tight enough yet, but I can do that by holding it in place. Is to put a little V in there, because these will change shape slightly. And if you go for a flush surface as it is now, lovely and flush, it won't stay. It's inevitable that it will move in some way. So I'll bring up the tailstock and just put a little line in that space, and that line will keep the two parts clearly separate. So, and then I can show you what I do for the bottom, and then I'll finish the rest off camera. If you want to be in the draw to win the box, I'm assuming I'm going to finish it without ruining it, aren't I? Bold assumption. Then you've got a couple more minutes to get your name on the list. And I don't want to mar the top, so I've got a different centre here, which I've made just a wooden sleeve just to go over the top of it. And that will keep that in place, but it's not going to leave a mark. Right, so wood changing speed, alter the burn with the cut burrs. I don't think it will, unfortunately. I think that smoke is an inevitable part of it. But the next question might help, because that's a question about I need a bit more space, about the smoke booth that I use. So I'll give you a quick view of that in a moment. Just get this up at the right height and clear of the jaws. So the smoke booth that I've got, come onto this camera, zoom right out, it should pick it up. There we go. It's about £100 from, I got this online, just had to put a new filter. It came with 2 filters, and it did come with sides that came out and a bottom, but they were a bit cumbersome. They were suspended from the sides here, and it didn't really quite work on the lathe. But I think what would be better for me to do would be to make some kind of shield that came down this side and acted as a place for the smoke to gather before it gets sucked in, and it can then run through a tube. Although the filter captures most of it, I usually run this tube all the way out. It gets to the door of the garage so I can put the smell outside. Has a light inside it, which is quite a nice little feature. If I can find where I put the remote control. Not too noisy, and as you can see, it really does a good job of pulling away the fumes. It does a great job with the spirit stains as well when I'm using my what's it called, airbrush. Right, so I'm just going to get this sorted out, pull that out of the way, and we can put that in as a view there, and you can see what I'm up to. And what tool am I going to use for this? I'm going to use my little spindle gouge. Let's come in closer. So I'm just going to do a little V cut. Lifting in. So we've got a little demarcation there. That will take account of any movement, and then it needs to be sanded. So I can do that sanding with it in position here. I guess 240 will be fine. Now, quite a lot of finish went into that V joint, so I'm going to have to clean that out. Again, helpful having a fingernail, so I can take a bit of the paper, hold it in place. And doesn't it look much nicer than that rather sad looking manky lump of wood that's lived in a bag outside for 10 years? There, very nice. I do love cherry. It's nice to have it a bit natural, some of it showing. I know I don't always think people appreciate that I like natural wood, but there we go, I do. So perhaps it was a little ambitious to try to do all of this in one go, but it's almost there. The lid is nearly completed, and I'll get that finished off. I'll film that, and then I'll clean up this edge and put some finish on there as well, and hopefully it's going to go to a good home. Now, jam chucks. Like I did with the lid, I could make a jam chuck for the base. It's quite handy to have a jam chuck with a hole through it. I've a couple of times made boxes, jammed it on, and then just could not get it off because I'd made it too tight. So having a hole through the centre allows you to just knock it off through with a dowel and knock your thing off. But you can also get nylon jaws, or you could make wooden jaws. Here are some from Nova, soft jaws, and I've got some earlier iterations from Nova on this chuck, and it's a nylon chuck jaw, so you can turn it with a scraper, a skew chisel, and then you've got some movement to hold your box. So I would probably use that today. It would be quicker to put that on and turn the bottom. Which I will do again, and I'll film it and I'll include that in the what's it called, in the link that I send out. I'll upload it rather than have a Zoom one. So I just right now, to get some colour over that textured surface, a little bit of an iridescent paint. Really need very little of this, so just a little bit onto a bit of paper there, which I'll use as a little palette, and just brush it out. Dry the brush off to not quite dry, sort of damp. Just coming off, but it's not cold or wet on my hand. And then I'm just going to brush that over the surface, and it just puts a little hint of colour on, a little sheen, a little bit more sense of depth is picked up in the texture. And although I'm going over the edges, I will come back and sort that out. There, that's given a nice sort of bluey green sheen on the top. You can build up different colours doing this technique, dry brushing technique, and get some wonderful effects. If you want to look at some really wonderful examples of this kind of work, people to look for: Michael Keyes, K-E-H-S, Jacques Vessery, Donna Zills Banfield. They'll be good starting places. So I could follow this with a lighter colour to really create a more sense of sort of pop on the very top of the texture, and that would be put on with a very light touch. But I'm going to leave it at that. So the brush I use is just a cheap makeup brush. I bought a set of these online, all different sizes, so you can use them for a range of different effects, or for different size pieces, massive or little. I don't know if one's a blusher and one's a rouge applicator. I didn't go into too much detail about what each brush was for, but they're nice, fine, soft filaments. They work very nicely. And on this occasion the paint I used was a Pebeo acrylic. Green blue, iridescent green blue. And you can see how small an amount I needed. Just a little area there where I could get a bit more right to the edge. So I just clean the face up, and then it's just the bottom of the box to do, and we're done. So I need a cleaning up shot, cleaning up cut on the face here. That's a great excuse to get the skew chisel out and to do a little slice. And that should give us a nice clean surface that actually probably doesn't even need any sanding. I'm not going to sand that, but I'll just put a little bit of the cut and polish on this edge where it feels a tiny bit rough, and clean that edge up. And also the cut and polish being wax will give it a bit of protection. Just a bit of cleaning up right in that join. Fingernail time. I do like this use of the top of the lid to add some decoration, and you know, limiting myself to just a couple of colours is unusual for me, but there's a whole host of different techniques you could use on here, different designs, patterns you could use, different colours, different techniques. So maybe I'll do a little series of decorative box lids. I've got to come up with some new ideas, surely. Right. So, last thing to do, we've addressed everything now apart from the bottom of the box. And so we'll get this cleaned up. It could, of course, be completed in a number of ways. I could use a jam chuck, stick that in the chuck and cut a tenon, or I could make some use of these nylon jaws that I've had kicking around in my workshop since, oh golly, probably 2013, and I'm going to give them a go today. There we go, a little cherry box with a decorative lid, signed on the bottom, and for Hugh, my friend in Wales. Delighted you won it in the draw, Hugh, and I hope you find some things to put in it. You might need to give it a little bit of an easing on the lid when it's arrived in the post. I really enjoyed doing this. I do love working with cherry, and I do think I might be doing a few more box lids with this kind of feature on the top. It's a nice way of introducing some embellishment into your wood turning without going too far. Minimal equipment needed, he says, thinking about 3 different pyrography kits that he used and pens. anyway, and paint and whatever. And in the interest of complete transparency, the cup burr that burnt these large domes on the outside, they did produce slight not quite scorching, almost like drier marks on the underside in the lid. So I've done a little bit of decorative joining of the dots on the inside. I think that actually looks nicer than the little dots of light colour that had burnt through. And just finished with cut and polish, a wax finish. So it'll develop a nice sheen as it's used every day for something. Maybe I should do a box making course. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. And if this is the first time you've seen one of my videos, what you've just watched is a slightly edited version of a free Zoom recording. A free Zoom event I usually hold about 10 a year, so roughly once a month with a couple of months off for holidays. And that's a free Zoom, lasts about an hour, hour and a quarter, and it's available to anyone who subscribes to my newsletter. There are links to that in the description below. Right, off for a cup of tea.